Hey folks, welcome back to the studio. We're going to make a chain today, an Etruscan loop and loop chain. I've made them, I've probably done 10, 15 feet of them at one time or another. And they're fun to do and pretty easy if you watch, pay attention. Okay, the one other thing I wanted to say before we get going is if you like this video, please subscribe to it on YouTube. We're trying to build up our clientele. It makes me able to make these videos and put them out there. Okay, here we are. We're getting started. I'm gonna put my glasses on and I'm gonna go over what we need. Starting over here, you're going to use a 5/0 or a 6/0 blade. This is going to be a 5/16 wooden dowel. This is going to be a 3-inch saw. You can use any size saw. The bigger you get, the bigger saw you use though, the more flimsy it's going to be to saw. 22 gauge sterling silver wire, a flux brush, specialty pair of pliers that I'll go into in a minute, a flat pair of pliers, and a piece of brass wire. That's all we're going to need, and some flux. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take this, I'm going to move this out of the way. We're going to take this 22 gauge sterling wire. I've pulled it down to 22. I suggest you just buy a bunch of 22. You don't have to anneal it. It's fine the way it is. I annealed this because I drew this down and it took a while. So first thing I'm going to do, I've taken my dowel, this little dowel right here, and I've drilled 3 holes, boom, 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 just like that. And I'll do it on this end so you can see what I'm talking about. I like to start about, you know, 1/4 inch somewhere toward the end, just like that. This is a number 60 bit, or any bit will work, just don't use a giant one. And I go about in 1/2 inch increments. Depending on what my sawing ability is, the longer you go, the more difficult it's going to be to saw into the wood and the wire itself. So when you're first starting off, I would recommend that you just do a 1/2 inch worth of wire, and then keep going as you get better. Okay, I'm going to take my wire now, and since I'm left-handed, I like to start at the inside hole. That's this one right here. I just run my wire inside there, and then I wrap it back around. I wrap it tightly toward the end of the dowel. Make sure your wires are close together. Now when I do these, I usually have a piece now. This is going to be like a 1/2 inch worth of wire. I would make them 1 inch because it's just a lot faster. I'm going to cut this off now. I give it some loop, because I got to do a bend here, and I'm going to take this now on this end and I'm going to run it through, pull it tight, get my pliers, pull it super tight, bend it over like I did the first one, and snip it off. So this is what you have now. It looks like it's a piece of whipped rope. So you're going to take this now and you're going to cut them with a saw. You can't cut these with a pair of nippers. They're all going to be different lengths, and they have to be the same length for the chain to look right. Okay, so I'm going to take this saw right here, and I want you to follow me here. I just put it in one of the crevices on this brand new bench pen. I've had this bench pen for probably 35 years, and I can't seem to get rid of it. So I'm going to find a crevice here where I can cut. And I'm going to start with my saw right at the beginning of the wood. I'm going to put my thumb on it to kind of hold it. And I'm just going to cut through, cutting the wire and the wood at the same time. So there's my wires. There's a bunch of them. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to show you how to put these wires together. It's very simple. I want you to pay attention to this. I don't use pliers. Since I wrapped them around a dowel, they've already got tension in them. So what you're going to do is you're going to use that tension to make these ends stick together. So I do just like this. I go back, other side, and then I bring it back to the center, and every time they're going to meet perfectly. I mean, not every time, but damn near every time. I do it again. I go this way, I go that way, and then I let them come back to each other, and they just naturally want to go to that place where they're comfortable, or as Emerald would say, they're happy. I don't like that. Anyway, I'll do one more so you can get the idea. I'll look at it sideways because I don't want this. You can't have that. That's just not going to work. You have to have those things face to face. Just like that. All right. I'm going to use hard solder, and I'm going to use a really short brush and some watered down flux. And I'm just going to take it and touch it on the break in my wires. Now this is another trick that I like. I put all of my wires facing the break or where they meet in the same direction. That way I know that when I put my solder down, it's going to gravitate in that area. I don't even worry about making sure the solder is directly on top of the break. If you put just a tiny piece on there, it'll flow. It'll flow to the break. All right, so I got my flux on. As I said, a tiny piece. This is my hard solder. I'm just going to let those get right up against that flux. I'm using the flux as a glue. I'm using a dry pair of tweezers so you ever had that happen where you pull your tweezers back and the solder comes with it? Use dry tweezers, it won't happen. So I'm going to put these on just like that, right? There we go. One more. All right. I'm going to use a small flame on this. So I'm going to be using kind of a wispy flame here. I don't want it looking like this. I don't want it with gas and then a hissing sound. That'll kill them. Back your oxygen off. Back your everything off until you have a flame that is kind of brushy like that. And I'm going to just start going. I think they're going to stay where they're supposed to be. And I just kind of brush over the whole thing. I use hard solder on here because you don't want these things breaking. Don't use easy. You might get by with medium if your skills aren't up to hard solder yet. You know, I'm not going to frown on that, but I don't like doing a chain and then halfway through it, I see a busted link. Just like that, okay? See, now sometimes it might be a little bit off of the break. Doesn't matter. Watch how that hard solder just goes in both directions. Like this one right here. I'm going to bring it over to it. This is going to help you with your soldering skills. There's no doubt about it. So I've got them all right here. I'm going to take these now. I'm going to put them in a little bucket and I'm going to throw them in the pickle. And then we'll be right back. Okay. The next step is we're going to take our soldered loops that are now out of the pickle and we're going to stretch them. You're only going to stretch them a little bit, but you're going to reshape them. For this, I'm going to use this special pair of old round nose pliers that I made. And what I did is I came out about 2 or 3 millimeters off the tip and I filed a groove on the outer edge and kind of round it too on both sides. Just like that. Cleaned it up till I have something like this. And here's what I'm going to do with it. I'm going to take one of these loops and these loops right here the little loops that I put on the plier act as a stretcher. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that my solder joint is the dead center, or as close to, is when I pull my loop. So I got it like this, and I'm just going to take it and stretch it, just like that. When I'm finished stretching it, I take these flat pliers, and I like to go in there and just compress the ends. See right here, you got a loop. I like to compress that. You're going to make it round and loopy in a second, but right now, to start your weaving, it really helps out. I'm going to do it again. I want my solder joint in the middle. See, just like that, solder joint here. Then I'm going to take these, I'm going to get it in the notch and pull it. Now don't go pulling them too hard. You'll stretch it or you'll break it. Do a couple more here. And then I'm going to show you some that I've already had prepared. I used to do this back in the day when I was doing shows. We'd fly to the shows, and I'd fly to San Francisco from Florida. We had a 4-hour trip, and I would go loaded down with, 500-600 of these loops and a little black piece of paper, and I would just sit there and weave on the plane all the way to San Francisco. By the time I got there, I could have a foot done. So, it's something that you can do, in your spare time. It's, So I'm going to do one more. Once again, I'm making sure that my solder is in the center. The solder is not even going to show because it's going to be inside the chain where people can't see it. All right, so I got a bunch of these done. So, with me so far, pretty simple. You're just making loops. Now, I'm going to take 2 of these that I've already made, and I'm going to cross them over each other, just like this. And I'm going to solder them together. Now, when I say crossing over, I don't mean like this, and I don't mean, an X. You're making it, this is going to be a box chain. So you try to get it as close as you can. And the cool thing about this is your solder that you've already used is going to flow again. So you don't have to add any solder. Just flux it. Just like that. Same flame. Going to move it over there so they're crisscross. That looks pretty good. That looks even better. All right. I'm just going to wave it around the center, and you can see that solder, it just has to be tacked. It doesn't have to be on all 4 sides. All right. So after I do this, I'm going to pickle this, and then I'm going to get myself a piece of wire, just a little piece of brass wire, and I'm going to push it. I'm going to do it. This is the one time that I use a third hand. I'm going to put that just like that. And I'm going to hold it with a third hand. Like so. Now I can use medium or easy. I'll probably use easy on this. And I'm just going to tack this thing on there. That's hard. Here we go. Like I said, this is just a tack. It doesn't have to be beautiful. Just going to take my easy and just lay it right up there against it. I'm going to put most of my heat on my little piece of wire, because it's on my brass wire. And there she is. Now what I do sometimes is, this time I made two of them, same piece of wire. If I want to start a chain, a different chain or something, or have somebody else in here learn how to do it, it'll get used up. Okay, so we're going back to our box piece right here, our cross that's already been soldered. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take those lower ones and you're just going to bend them with your fingers. See that? You're going to bend them with your fingers straight up, just like so. So you have a little box, right? You're going to do, then you're going to do the ones that were on top and fold them up with your fingers once again. Until you create something like this. Now don't worry that this loop is a little bit higher. We're just starting it out. But you're going to want to see 4 distinct sides. You got to start like that, and it'll just make your life a lot easier. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my very favorite awl, or whatever you want to, auger, awl, whatever you want to call it, and I'm going to go to the lower first ones that I did, and I'm just going to round out the bottom. Look at the difference. That's the one I rounded out. That's the one that's still straight, right? I'll go ahead and get these while I'm at it. An awl, this guy right here. You want to get a dental tool. You don't want to use something like a pick or anything like that. You want to get something that stainless steel, really hard, that you can put a high polish on it, because a high polish is the same thing as less friction. So I got my first 4 right here. I've got these guys that I did. You're going to start at the bottom. You're going to turn it sideways, and you're going to do the same thing you did before, just like that. I'm going to go over here to the other side, run it through, fold it up, just like that. See? I'm maintaining that square. Then I come in here with my awl. I go one side, flip it around, as long as you do this and you just pay attention to it, you'll do fine. You just want to make sure that you continue to keep that square. So, and you can always see which one's next. When you look at it, you can see, well, these 2 right here are obviously higher, so I must be going through the lower one, which you always do. You're always going to go through the lower one, turn it sideways, and fold it up, just like that. I'll put one more in. Well, I'll probably go ahead and just do the whole chain. Now, if you want a heavier chain, this is 22 gauge wire with the dowel I told you about. If you want a bigger chain, a heavier chain, you can go to like 20 gauge wire and a 3/8 inch dowel or something like that. You're just going to have to test it out. But when you get into that heavier wire like that, higher, thicker than 22 gauge, you're going to be looking at using a pair of pliers sometimes to bend that piece up, because 20 gauge is a lot heavier than 22. Okay, so I'm going to fold this one up. I'm going to fold this up. So what I'm doing, when I'm doing this, I have a little machinist vise that I have set up right here. Or you can get a clamp or something. And what you do, you just clamp this thing onto something, and then just it's stationary, and you just keep weaving it. You just keep on going up. This is what I'm talking about. Any kind of a vise will help you. So I've got this in there like so. That it's like a big third hand. This is much easier, you know, to stretch my wire pieces. And it stays there. Once again, go through my lower one. I can use two hands now to bend it up. Just like that. And I would just keep on, I'll go one more. I keep saying one more. But I like to get this thing going for about 1 inch, and if I make any kind of mistakes, if they're not bent upright or something like that, I like to see it happen in the beginning, because as you go, the chain, it will be kind of self-correcting. So I'm going to go that far, and I'm going to look at it. I'm going to make sure I still have my square, which I do. If you don't have the exact square like that, see that right there? I'll come in here with these pliers and just give it a tiny bit of a torque, just like that, and I will get it the other side too. Until I have my square again. There it is. You just keep on going. You can see how it looks. That's the beginning of it. Looks pretty good. See, there's a little flaw, that bottom one right there. Don't worry about it. You know, just don't worry about it. You're not going to use that end anyway. And you're just going to keep on going with it until you get to the point where you have something that looks like this. Same chain. I've just started at the beginning. Once again, if you look at the finished chain, you can see the square in it. You just keep on going with it. Now, the next thing we're going to do is when you pull this, when you finish with this chain, it's going to be kind of stiff. You know, it's not going to be very smooth. So what I do is I draw them through a draw plate. Now, a lot of people use a wooden draw plate, which is probably what you're going to be doing, because the size draw plate that you use for this is big, and it's really no sense in doing it. So I don't have one here, but I'm going to tell you what to do. You're going to get yourself a drill. You're going to start with about a 1/4 inch drill for this size chain right here. You're going to go 1/4 inch drill, and then you're going to go the next two down from it. And you're just going to take the chain and you're going to put it in a vise, and you're going to pull it through, and it's going to level everything on here, okay? That's what we've done here. So we're going to go to the next step now after we've done that. Okay, so let's just pretend that we've made your chain. It's like this. Now this one is very flexible because I've already done what I'm going to show you how to do. So, but just bear with me. I like using a wooden dowel. You have two choices. You have a steel draw plate, which will pull girders from a building through it. The holes are so damn big, but it's steel. Now remember, these are anneal. They're kind of soft, and you want them a little bit soft. You pull it through a steel draw plate, you're going to be making things harden up, and it's going to affect the flexibility of your piece. So I go with this right here. It's a 1/4 inch bit, and then I go down from there. You can go up, make bigger ones if you make bigger chain, it doesn't matter. But I'd like to put it through one of them where it's just going to go through pretty easily. Then I go to this one, the next one down, which is the one that I made for this chain, and it's pulling harder. And when you pull it out, the lumps and everything are going to be totally gone, and you're going to have this straight chain, still going to be stiff, but it's going to be straight. All you're doing with this is you're leveling the links so that they're all the same. All right, when you're done with that, you're going to take something round. You can use a ring mandrel. Ring mandrel's perfect for this. Tighten it up. Now remember, it's not flexible. It's stiff. It's round, I mean square, and it's perfectly straight and everything, but it's stiff. You're going to put it on here and just do a little shoe shine loop, and you're just going to go back and forth with the piece, and you will see it get flexible and feel it get flexible as you're doing this. When you're done, you'll have a super flexible chain. You can tie it in a knot, you can do with it what you want, but you'll have a really wonderful woven chain. Okay, that's it for the day. We're going to show you a few pictures of how I use my chains in my work, give you an idea of something else you can do with it. And remember, just another little add-on, if you like this video, please subscribe. Thank you very much. See you later.